Well, joining me now in the studio is Andy Hunder from the Ukrainian Institute to tell us more about the situation. Andy, thank you for coming into Arise News. Let's talk about the renewed fighting, or continued fighting, I should say. Why around the area of Donetsk? Why is this airport so strategically and symbolically important to both sides? Because looking from the pictures, it's been completely devastated. Can it be used for anything?
Absolutely. Well, the airport, I mean, this is a brand new airport. I mean, it was built in 2012. It was opened for the Euro 2012 Football Championship, and it was in Donetsk that the big matches took place. That's where England plays football matches. And now, as we've seen from the pictures, there's hardly anything left from it. It's been totally destroyed. I think it is a sign of symbolism now, because well, I mean, the Ukrainian side has been showing great bravery in terms of defending this airport. So it is a symbol now of something in the whole war. You know, there's been lots of information coming in, who's controlling it.
Do we know exactly who is controlling it?
Well, I mean, we have sort of various information coming in. Yesterday there was news that one of the roofs had collapsed, and that had injured many of the Ukrainian soldiers. So it is a very, very serious situation. And we are seeing, you know, as we speak, there's increased fighting around the airport. I mean, there's an old terminal there, and there's a new terminal. I mean, this is an airport that I've flown through many times in the past, and it was a brand new airport, as I said. And there's nothing left of it at the moment.
So, with the fighting continuing, where does this leave the September Minsk ceasefire agreement? Is it completely forgotten?
Well, you know, we have to look into the reasons why we're seeing this escalation at the moment. One of the reasons is that the pressure that's putting on Vladimir Putin back home in Russia, and this takes the attention away from the crisis, the economy, the rouble, the declining oil prices in Russia. And, you know, Vladimir Putin has built this image of a macho, of a bare-chested man riding a horse, and he wants to, you know, show the Russian people that he's, you know, fighting and thing. But this comes at a very high cost of lives, Ukrainian lives and also Russian lives, and Russian troops that are being sent over by the Putin regime to Ukraine. And we're seeing the heavy losses on both sides. So it's a very, very devastating, horrible war.
In terms of Russia's response to this, the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister, he said that relying on a military solution would be the biggest, even strategic mistake that Ukraine could make. And yet I'm just wondering, well, he says also with irreversible consequences, is there a political solution possible? Because when we look at what's happening in Brussels at the moment,
yes,
as Sarah Firth was saying in her report, people are talking and talking and talking, and yet nothing's being resolved.
Absolutely. I think, you know, what we've seen when Russia invaded Crimea at the end of February, a year ago, when it denied any involvement, but we had Russian soldiers without any insignia appearing on the ground. And now also we're seeing, you know, many Russian troops coming to Donetsk fighting the war. And the question is now, what can be done to stop this? And I think it's really, you know, the sanctions against Russia are working. The sanctions that have been introduced by the West, by the EU, by the United States, they are working. I mean, we're seeing the oil price has been hit, the ruble has been hit, and this is having a big effect on Vladimir Putin. So I think it's really putting the pressure and keeping the pressure up to really get Vladimir Putin and his administration sort of behind the table for them to understand that they must stop this war.
And do you think that the foreign ministers, part of the European Union, do you think they do stand together, as indeed Federica Mogherini said, we are united in this? Do you think that's really true? Because at the end of the day, the sanctions aren't just hurting Russia, they're hurting many others as well.
Well, I mean, 28 countries in the EU, and some of the countries are more united, some are less. I mean, the Russians have been very strong in lobbying. I mean, they have some very good lobbying tools, i.e. the price of gas. So that's what they've been putting pressure on many EU states in terms of the lobbying, because, you know, if you don't support us, we'll cut your gas off. But one would hope that now really the foreign ministers do come together and understand that the horror of this war and the human price and the human factor in this war, and really, you know, trying to find a solution as soon as possible for this to be resolved.
Do you think sanctions are the way forward? Because Germany has tried in the past. Angela Merkel, the Russian speaker, she's tried to talk to Vladimir Putin, hasn't she, and find out a different way. Do you think there should be more negotiation with the Russian president other than sanctions?
Well, I mean, we've seen that Vladimir Putin, he's been very aggressive. What they've done in Crimea, what they're doing now, the deaths in Donetsk, in Luhansk. And I think it's, the analogies of Slobodan Milosevic in Serbia. I mean, the West really needs to stand up against Vladimir Putin to show its strength. And yes, I mean, the sanctions are working and they should continue.
Lovely. Andy Hunder, thank you very much for coming into Arise News.